the world is changing. Solar panels stretch across vast deserts. Wind turbines spin along endless coastlines. Batteries hum quietly in storage facilities. The age of fossil fuels is fading, and in its place, a new energy revolution is rising, one that promises a cleaner, more sustainable future. Governments, corporations, and visionaries are racing toward a world powered entirely by renewables. It feels inevitable, but beneath the optimism lies an uncomfortable question. Is this transition as revolutionary as it seems? For all the advancements in green technology, fossil fuels still power the majority of human civilization. Global energy demand continues to rise, and despite decades of renewable expansion, oil, gas, and coal remain the backbone of industrial economies. If renewable energy is the solution, why do we remain so dependent on the past? The numbers paint a sobering picture. Even in the most ambitious energy transformations, Germany's energy wind, California's green energy push, fossil fuel infrastructure lingers, bridging the gaps when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. Meanwhile, emerging economies, hungry for growth, continue to build coal plants at staggering rates. The promise of clean energy exists, but so does the weight of reality. Yet, the vision of a world powered by the wind and sun remains as compelling as ever. A future where energy is abundant, clean, and limitless. But is this a true revolution, or simply an illusion of progress? If renewable energy is destined to replace fossil fuels, why haven't we made the leap? And if we do, what hidden challenges await us on the other side? A world powered by the wind and sun seems like the perfect solution. Endless, clean energy, with no pollution, no fuel shortages, and no environmental destruction. But every energy system has a cost, and the green revolution is no exception. The materials that make it possible, lithium, cobalt, rare earth metals, must be extracted from the earth, just like coal and oil. And in many ways, the new mining boom is just as destructive as the one it was meant to replace. Deep in the Andes, entire mountainsides are being stripped away for lithium, the essential component of modern batteries. The process consumes vast amounts of water, an ironic twist in some of the driest regions on Earth. In the Congo, cobalt mining fuels a multi-billion-dollar industry, yet much of it relies on laborers working in dangerous conditions, sometimes even children. The rare earth metals that power wind turbines and solar panels come from mines that leave behind toxic waste, contaminating rivers and soil. The problem isn't just where these materials come from, it's how much we need. A single electric car requires 6 times more mineral resources than a conventional vehicle. A wind farm, a solar array, an energy storage facility, all demand massive quantities of mined metals. As renewable technology scales up, so does the demand for these finite resources. In a world desperate to move away from fossil fuels, are we simply shifting the environmental burden from oil fields to mineral mines? Even land itself is becoming a battleground. Solar farms and wind installations require enormous space. Miles of panels, towering turbines, and sprawling battery storage sites. In some regions, this expansion leads to deforestation and displacement, as ecosystems and communities are pushed aside to make room for renewable infrastructure. The clean energy revolution, it turns out, is not as weightless as it appears. This raises a difficult question. If building a renewable-powered world requires so much mining, so much land, and so many resources, the promise of renewable energy is built on an assumption that the more we generate, the closer we come to energy independence. But wind and solar power come with a fundamental challenge, one that has plagued every attempt at large-scale adoption. They are, by nature, unpredictable. The sun sets, the wind dies down, and when that happens, the grid must find a way to keep running. For now, the answer is simple: fall back to fossil fuels. Even in nations leading the renewable revolution, coal and natural gas still act as the invisible safety net. When solar farms go dark and wind turbines stand still, gas plants fire up, ensuring uninterrupted power. This dependency raises an uncomfortable reality. The more we integrate renewables, the more backup energy we need. And in many cases, that backup still comes from the very fuels we're trying to leave behind. The search for solutions has led to a race in energy storage. Lithium-ion batteries, hydrogen fuel cells, and pumped hydro reservoirs promise a way to hold excess power for when it's needed. But scaling these technologies to power entire cities, let alone nations, remains an unsolved challenge. Storing energy at the scale of a fossil fuel plant would require battery production on a level never seen before, demanding even more resources, more mining, and more land. Even if storage improves, renewables face another obstacle: an aging electrical grid designed for a different era. Fossil fuel plants provide a steady, controllable supply of electricity. Renewable energy, in contrast, is chaotic, fluctuating minute by minute. Balancing this volatility requires a level of grid flexibility that many regions simply don't have. Blackouts and energy shortages become more likely, and without major infrastructure overhauls, reliance on renewables could introduce new vulnerabilities rather than eliminating old ones. This leads to a difficult question. Are we moving toward a future, or one where we are forever managing the instability of the systems we create? And if renewables alone can't meet demand, without fossil fuel support, is the transition really a solution, or just a shift in dependency? For decades, the idea of renewable energy has been framed as an escape, a way to break free from the destructive cycles of fossil fuel consumption. But what if this transition is not just about energy? What if it's about something much larger, something embedded in the very foundations of our civilization? Energy is not just power, it is control. It is the force that drives economies, shapes geopolitics, and determines the rise and fall of nations. Fossil fuels have long been at the center of this equation, creating global power structures that define alliances, conflicts, and wealth distribution. The shift to renewables does not simply replace one energy source with another. It reshapes who holds power in the world. Consider the nations that dominate today's energy landscape: oil-rich states, fossil fuel giants, economies built on resource extraction and export. As the world moves toward renewables, countries with abundant sunlight and wind potential, once considered resource poor, suddenly find themselves in a new position of influence. Nations controlling lithium, cobalt, and rare earth minerals become the gatekeepers of the future. But power transitions are rarely smooth. The race for renewable resources is already fueling political tensions, trade wars, and economic maneuvering. Just as oil-rich regions became battlegrounds in the past, lithium-rich deserts and cobalt mines may become the contested zones of the future. Supply chains tighten, national interests collide, and a new era of resource competition begins. And beyond geopolitics lies an even deeper question: who will control the energy itself? Decentralized solar and wind promise independence. Rooftop panels, community grids, self-sustaining systems. Yet, the infrastructure behind renewables remains in the hands of a few. Energy conglomerates, tech giants, and financial institutions are investing heavily, ensuring that even in a green future, power remains concentrated. The dream of energy freedom may be closer than ever, but so is the risk of a new kind of monopoly. If renewable energy is supposed to liberate us, why does it seem to be replicating the same patterns of control? And if the battle over energy is not just about technology, but about power itself, what kind of world are we really building? The future of energy is no longer just a question of survival. With climate instability accelerating and global consumption rising, the choices we make today will determine the shape of civilization for generations to come. But the path forward is anything but clear. Renewable energy offers hope, a chance to break free from fossil fuels, to power the world without destroying it. Yet, as we've seen, the transition is far from simple. The demand for materials, the instability of supply, the geopolitical struggles, and the looming question of who controls energy, these challenges. Some argue that innovation will solve these problems. Advancements in battery technology, grid efficiency, and next-generation renewables like fusion energy could transform our energy landscape, making the current limitations of wind and solar obsolete. Others caution that relying on future breakthroughs is a dangerous gamble, that instead of searching for limitless energy, we should reconsider the way we consume it. This raises a deeper issue, one often overlooked in discussions of energy. Is the problem really about how we generate power, or how much we believe we need? Modern civilization is built on endless growth, an ever-expanding demand for resources, consumption, and economic expansion. But no energy system, renewable or otherwise, can sustain infinite growth on a finite planet. If we do not address consumption itself, will any energy transition truly be enough? Perhaps the real question is not whether renewable energy will save us, but whether we are willing to rethink what we mean by saving. If sustainability requires more than just replacing one energy source with another, then the future may not be about finding a perfect solution, but about making hard choices. Choices that challenge the way we live, the way we grow, and the way we define progress itself. So, as we move forward into an uncertain future, one final question remains. Are we truly prepared to change? Or are we simply hoping that energy alone will allow us to stay the same? This video has come to an end, but the discovery continues. Check out more content on the channel and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Thank you for watching.